Here we are again with the fifth part of the history of experience. This time we have two chapters on theory and history and on the dynamics of history. We have ended last time with a definition of experience, which is conscious participation, and we found that the changing structure of participation is the source for the change of experience throughout history, and we want to take a closer look at that before we go into any more details. I have found altogether 9 different stages in the history of experience that amount to 8 changes, and these 8 changes are the chapters of the book that is forthcoming on the history of experience. So it all started out with a focus on sensation. All the stories of the stargazer as well as of the fall from grace in paradise, they all started from a situation where people, the human animal, was lost in sensation. And the first turn in the history of experience was a turn to imagination. So this is the second stage in the history of experience. The next stages that we will look into are called participation, which is equivalent to a sense of order. Then comes self-reflection, which was a topic of the Stargazer episode. Then comes the noetic experience, which sounds a little bit strange, but actually it's something similar to contemplation or reasoning. Then we will deal with spiritual experience, creative experience, consciousness, and the discovery of the unconscious, which is the last stage for which we have evidence. That started, at least here in the West, in the 19th century. So this is the sequence we will look into by and by in the future sequels of our takes here. Each of these experiential turns do not happen in an instant, so we always have the same structure. It all is starting with a period of incubation. As we will see in the future parts, it always starts with few individuals who become aware of a new dimension, which is not really common for the rest of societies. And this may take sometimes thousands of years, and sometimes it may happen in an instant. When these discoveries are realized by other people, then it comes to what I call articulation. That is, they talk about it and they give it a name. But to become a permanent part of society, whatever small or large, if it is groups or the entire world, what is always needed is a method that everybody can apply. And when this method is accepted in society, it becomes an institution. So we always have the same sequence from incubation via articulation to method and to institution. It's like, starting universities. People realize that they have to learn a lot of things. There are some people who would offer courses. Then these courses are made by a certain method. These methods become institutions, and the result of institutional methods is the foundation of universities or academies or whatever you may call it, schools. So the next point is, what kind of historical dynamics emerges from these changes? Now, as I've already noted, the first revolution in experiential history of mankind is the turn from sensation to imagination, which happened pretty much worldwide in the upper Paleolithic, which is quite a large period of time. The discovery of a sense of order or participation does not happen before the so-called Mesolithic, which starts about 10,000 years before present. Self-reflection comes with Bronze Age cultures. The noetic experience is first to be seen in Western antiquity, like in Greece, as well as in the Jewish culture, as well as in Indian culture and in China. Spiritual experience has a long history as well, and the same is true for creative experience, consciousness, and the unconscious, which in the West is first discovered roughly in the period of the Renaissance days, Consciousness is coming in early modernity, and the unconscious, as I've mentioned before, starts with the 19th century. So we have a certain sequence which is more or less an abstract, idealistic model, because if we look into the different regions of the world, it's not simultaneous. So you have regions where things happen quicker and others where it is slower. So you have not really one human history, but you have many histories that run parallel to each other. The last universal culture, the last truly universal culture that was simultaneously available to the entire globe was what I called the symbolic culture of the Paleolithic and the cosmological culture of the Mesolithic and the Bronze Age times. After that, everything splits apart and regions go different historical trajectories. Some of the old cultures that have emerged in the time between the Paleolithic and the Bronze Age, they persist until today. So you have, in certain parts of the world, you have people still living in what I've come to call the cosmological culture. But then in other areas like India, you have the transition from the cosmological culture to a almost fully grown modernity about the time of Buddha, so about 500 before Christ. So actually, and it's quite stunning, in terms of the history of experience, India was for many centuries the most advanced region of the world, because it covered everything from rationality to the discovery of the unconscious. It's truly stunning. When you go to the West, that covers most of the regions that are located around the Mediterranean Sea. When you come to the so-called West or Occident, we see that the same turns that happened in India right out of a sudden within a single century or two, that is spread over about 1,000 years and more. So it starts about 400, 500 before Christ and comes to an end at our present day. So typically we have totally different trajectories, totally different speed. Sometimes it's coming in one instant and sometimes it's spread over many centuries. Imperial China is more close to India. It was much more advanced than what we call the West for many centuries, but then it sort of lingers on a certain stage like India did. So we have different trajectories in India, in what we call today China, and the West today. So actually, and this is quite revealing, we have the simultaneous existence of very different experiential cultures throughout the world, and this explains to a certain extent, in very practical manners, why it is sometimes so difficult to communicate from people who have another background, because their mix of experiential dimensions might be totally different from ours. So the time that we need to get together and understand each other might take a very, very long and great effort. So integration, in the modern sense, of people coming to another part of the world is not that easy as many people think. And that's more or less what I have to say for today. And we see each other again next time with part 6, where we switch over to the Paleolithic and the turn to imagination. Thanks for today.